Good morning, everybody. This is Martin John, and I am here to talk to you about the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching is an ancient text written about 600 BCE, consisting of 81 short verses or chapters that help us live a more reasonable life. When I talk about living a reasonable life, I mean that we live a life that we are not under the influence of other people or ideas or things. We are here present in the moment. We're able to address this moment without carrying with us all of the baggage that we have acquired through our lives, because constantly as we follow Tao, we let go. We don't hold on to those things. Of course, we all experience all sorts of trauma and different things in our life, but when we recognize where that trauma is coming from, we can recognize we are holding on to that. We can follow down and let go continually, rather than living in the manifestation where it's the where things become. I don't even know if I want to utilize the idea of like the word reality, but when things come into manifestation is just a experience that we have that allows us to experience the universe from a subjective point of view. And so we're all having these subjective realities. However, there is at the core of it, like it's guiding us to a certain space, a certain truth, and your truth and my truth are both separate and the same. And so there is no divide. And yet there is definitely a divide. You have a body and I have a body. And here in the United States, it's Juneteenth, and there's no better sort of thing to recognize that many of us do not have the same, history as others. And even though those things are intertwined, the two different experiences are intertwined, we can't understand each other's. We can be open to loving each other and loving the experiences we each have, but it's really difficult to try and say, oh, I understand, because there is no possible way we can understand the subjective experience of another person, especially a person who is living differently than we are. I'm a inner city raised white male. That's going to be very different than, someone raised in, Taipei. So we're looking at the Tao Te Ching, and the Tao Te Ching helps guide us to living a more reasonable life. So we don't ask the world, we don't ask things to change for us. Things are as they are. And when we can stop resisting those things being as they are, we often find our lives get easier. Our lives become more fluid. Our lives become more aligned with that which we are surrounded by, which is life, right? We're all here having our own experience, and yet I always like to remind everybody that, I don't have consciousness in your life. I am just playing a role in your life, that, you are able to experience certain things that I am saying. And as you experience them, I am just here to be a part of that experience. And yet in my life, you don't have consciousness. I am just here. I am just here having this experience, right? We're both having individual experiences, and we're connected to one another, and we're connected to the whole, and it's all intertwined. This is why I tell people, why do you want to try and control that? If you try and control another person, you have to control every aspect of their life so that they can, achieve what it is they need to achieve in their life. And you don't even know what that is. You only know what you want. And if you know what you want and you want other people to, abide by that, what are you going to do when you get what you want, but you have controlled someone else's life up until this point? Like, Are you going to try and control their life beyond that? Do you want that responsibility? Do you want to think about another person? I mean, usually when you get what you want, you stop thinking about the other people that made it possible anyway. So how can we take on the responsibility of wanting to control other people? And if we're going to start thinking about that, do we want other people to control us? We see it from such a small vantage point. And when we do see it from such a small vantage point, we don't get to see the big picture. We lose sight of it all. Yours truly, how are you, dear?
Oh, I'm very well. I've just been having an absolutely fantastic conversation with Brad this morning.
Oh, that's common, isn't it?
Yeah, it is quite common. I was just sitting outside looking at the plants and looking at the moon daisies. They're all planted kind of with a wildflower idea from the people that live here. And I was just sitting there and I was saying, isn't it wonderful what's going on around us when we look at, like you said, in a wider kind of angle and sit back for a bit and understand that we don't have this thing that we're kind of wanting, which is control.
Right.
How boring would life be if we could control everything?
It's not only that it would be exhausting.
Oh, it'd be such hard work, and I really don't like hard work.
That's I it as I continue my life, I this idea of like how much it means, like I have different experiences, and I see the more I step back and just observe, I see how all of the things that you experience are lined up to engage with me and give me an experience. But that has to do with you talking with like Penny, and that has to do with you engaging with your grandkids, and has to do with, and I don't know anything about that. Now I can't conduct that sort of, and I want you to come up and talk to me. So I'm going to, like I'm going to say something that's going to change, that's going to manipulate you to talk to me, or I want you to engage in my products, or I want you to, like, and I'm going to do all this, and I'm going to try and dictate your life. And yet I don't know anything about your life. And I don't know. And if I want to change you now, am I going to take on the responsibility to change you forever? Like what is my role? What is my responsibility in trying to affect or manipulate you?
And what is your responsibility about the result that you may be thinking might occur?
Right. I was in a group yesterday. I have this one group that I go to. It's a spiritual group, and we revolve around this one goddess and whatnot. And he was talking about a time that he went. He was going through a drought, and he went and he did some energetic work on the side of a mountain that resulted 3 days later in rain. It was for rain. It was for weather. And he had said, like, I'm not trying to say I made rain, because like I was just inspired to do that at that time. And in my mind, and I didn't say anything about this, I was like, if you made rain anytime anybody would have their house would get damaged by rain, you are now liable.
Yes. Oh, such a society.
You do not want to be responsible for rain.
Yeah.
And he didn't say he was, but in my mind, I'm like, there's so many people that just want to be able to affect things. And even in that state, he's like, like, I want to make rain. Even the desire to do that, gets you into a place of like, I want things different.
Yeah, I like what you said there, Martin John, because when we are looking to influence, which is pretty much what it is we are influencing only in such a small kind of narrow vision. What happens then to the responsibility of all of the other things that may occur from that influence?
Right.
Yeah, it's very interesting. When I was sitting outside this morning, I was looking at these moon daisies, and a thought came up to me as much as it would have done when I was a kid. It was, if that flower doesn't know what a bee is, and yet it attracts a bee to pollinate it, how does that happen?
And that's the thing. Everything is connected.
Yes.
The flower needn't know what a bee is.
Correct.
And the bee doesn't look at a flower as if it's beautiful. It looks at it as if it's sustenance, and it is going to serve the colony.
Yes, but not pollinate the flower. It's not got
Right.
that in mind.
The bee is not the tool of the flower.
Yeah.
And yet and the bee is not going back to the flower going, "Oh, look, I did a good job. Look at what I did."
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So let's find a number today. Let's see what all this is.
I'm absolutely enjoying the conversation. Thank you. Can I go for the number 9 today, please?
Sure. The danger of extremes. And I think this does align. Having to prove yourself will allow challenges to best you. Focus your attention on money and you lose sight of what is valuable. Keep in mind outside influence and you will be its prisoner. Do what you do and move on. It isn't yours anyway.
It's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that because it's kind of telling you then that you are, and you're not responsible for everything, and just it is what it is without you having to influence it or be influenced. It is what it is. Just in each moment that you are, just enjoy that. Not even enjoy it, just be it. That's it, really. Because we were talking about definitions, and defining what a thing is. And this one lends to that as well. Is that once you define, what a thing is, then you're defining also at the same time what it isn't.
Right.
Yeah.
The start having to prove yourself will allow challenges to best you. My mind went to that bee.
Yeah.
And the flower. Like, the flower doesn't have to prove itself to the bee, and the bee doesn't have to prove itself to the flower, and they work together, and it happens, and the bee doesn't have to come back and say, "Look, I helped the flower make seed," and the flower doesn't look at the bee and say, "Oh, you made it possible for me to survive."
Yeah.
The bees, nobody's trying to prove themselves. They're just doing what they do. As this ends, do what you do and move on. It isn't yours anyway. It's not the bees. It's not the flowers. It is what
it
it
is.
is.
Yes, which is my favourite saying. My one thing that I go to. It is what it is. That's it. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed that. Thank you very much, Martin John, for having me. I wanted to share that definitely with you this morning. And then when I saw you doing the Tao, I just wanted to say thanks for inspiring me to just let things be as they are and just observe them and then let go. Because even that, me watching that flower and noticing the bee, that's not mine either. It is what it is, and we're all letting go of it.
Yeah.
and moving on. Thanks so
Absolutely.
much. Thanks so much.
Oh, that's beautiful. Like, the idea that like having to prove yourself will allow challenges to best you. The moment you step up and try and prove yourself, you allow challenges to best you. You allow challenges in because you're trying to prove yourself. Nothing's challenging you. Your life is simply as it is. And so there's nothing that you need to prove. Focus your attention on money and lose sight of what is valuable. Keep in mind outside influence, and you will be its prisoner. One step after another, you will be like, if you are keeping, if everything you do is influenced by you thinking about an outside influence, then you are the prisoner of that. And then it says here, do what you do and move on. It isn't yours anyway. It isn't yours. It is just happening, and when those things happen, as those things kind of unfold, the more credit you take for it, just like we were talking about my, that meeting I was in yesterday where someone said, like they did this energetic work and rain came, and he said, I am not responsible for the rain. It just happened. And I don't know what inspired me to do that, but it's not me. I was inspired to do this. I did it. It's part of that. Is that part of the rain? Is that like, why was he inspired that time? He's not always inspired to do that. Why did he go to that hillside? He's not, it's everything that's specific about it. The question of why did that happen can come up, or we can just do it and move on. We might not have to ask the question at all. You don't have to ask the question. If you go out in your backyard and it hasn't rained in a week, and you do some praying for rain, and then you go home and you go about your business, and a couple of days later it rains, do you connect that action with the rain? You can, but that's just your story. I talk to people all the time about the idea of aligning your story, right? Your will. A lot of people want to think about free will in this way of like, everything that I do, I'm in control, I'm this, I'm that, right? But like, I look at free will as being, you have two things that you can do. You can either resist or surrender to that which is going on in your life. And then you can tell the story. So you can surrender to praying for rain, and then you do that and you go about your life and everything's good. And then you can tell the story about, well, did it do anything? Are you moving on and not telling the story? Or are you going to engage in storytelling and say, I went out and I prayed for rain and the next day it rained? Okay, that's great. And then you can go to the news and say, oh, a flash flood came. No, nobody knew anything about it. And all of these things you can prove that, like whatever. You can tell that story. That's just your story. And when you engage that story, when you then you're just telling the story of your life. Now the bee's not telling any stories of flowers. He's not going to a flower. The flower creates seeds and then spreads, and then there's a whole field of sunflowers, and in 3 years, and the bees aren't sitting back going, look at, we did this. We pollinated all of those flowers so that they could spread. They're not saying that. They're just saying, oh, we got more sunflowers. And maybe they're even bored of them. Maybe they're like, can we find some tulips or something? Jesus, like there's all sunflowers over there. Like they're noticing something else. Right? They've moved on. They did what they did and moved on. Having to prove yourself will allow challenges to best you. Focus your attention on money and lose sight of what is valuable. Keep in mind outside influence, and you will be its prisoner. Do what you do and move on. It isn't yours anyway. Thank you so much, Julie, for picking number 9. It's beautiful, and as we were talking about flowers, as we were talking about, like, actually, Julie, you were having a good conversation with Brad. I don't know that we talked about what that conversation was, unless that was the conversation that we were having. um, so yeah, you can come up and let us know what that was, and does this number 9 align with that?
Uh, well, the conversation started, yes, with the flower,
Yeah.
and the flower not knowing what a bee is, and
Oh,
a bee really not knowing that it's pollinating this flower, and creating seed. And we were kind of talking about, Brad kind of turned it on its head and said, yeah, the same with trees. They don't know. The evolution of the tree and these plants and the animals and insects that all kind of work together. There's something so wonderful about that
yeah.
and so uncontrolled. The evolution of things is, something that, we've kind of tried to influence.
Right. We think,
Yeah.
oh, we can do it better.
Yeah, i.e., many, many millions of years ago, I don't know how many, the UK, Scotland, Ireland, and Wales, it was just a forest of trees, loads and loads of trees, thick. There would be no sunlight coming in here, love. The
Right.
trees were doing really, really well. So we manipulated and influenced that by wanting to produce cattle farming for
Hmm.
arable. So we made these great swathes of clearings
Yeah.
so that we could settle in there and
It's
grow things.
logical, right? Like that's what I
Yeah,
talk about. It's like, oh,
yeah,
it's logical. We need more space for food. And it's like,
yeah.
wait, like all of this is what supports food. Like,
That's right.
it supports food for everyone. And
And
my spirit animal, as you may recall, is a squirrel.
yes,
And
never forgotten it.
squirrels, they forget where they hide their nuts, and then they're planting trees.
They
It's
are.
just they don't know they're planting trees. They're putting it in there for later, and then they forget where it is, and a tree pops up.
Later grows a tree with
That's
loads
right.
more, but the
That's
squirrel
right.
is long gone because he's planted it and he's
Yep.
realised it's not for him and
He
he's
did what he
moved
did
on.
and moved on. That's right.
So it was just that for me, I was just seeing how things are without influence, how things have this wonderful kind of agreement with each other, unspoken. This energy, this way of being that is unspoken. Like you said, it's not I want to congratulate myself because I planted a tree, said the squirrel.
Right.
It's that, and when you can kind of notice those things, how lovely, and how lovely to notice them and not want to be influencing it.
Right. Just
I
allow
don't
it to
need to
be.
impose myself or the way that I think or the way that I feel or my actions upon what's happening anyway, because it is what it is. And how lovely for me to be able to notice that. I'm moving on. So
That's right.
yes, that was pretty much it. I was really
Oh,
enjoying sitting out on the porch in a house that doesn't belong to us, in a place that we wouldn't really come to otherwise. All
right.
these
Yeah.
things occurring just as they do,
That's
without
beautiful.
any influence, without, it's just
It
so
does
nice.
such a better job than we do.
Yes, it certainly does.
It does
It
such a better
certainly
job.
does. Much love, Martin. Thank you.
Love you. Thank you.
Love you.
All right. We're gonna bring. Is this Francis? Is that right? Francis Fredericks. Is it raining where you are? It sounds like it's raining where Francis is. And if If you want to join me, you can. I don't know if it was an error that you asked to join. Yeah, it might be in the shower. So we'll go ahead and take you out. Okay. Well, if you want to join, you can. And I did get a message from Craig King, who is currently offline, and that's what it says. It says he's not happy with something I said yesterday revolving little wins don't matter. And of course, everything needs to be in context. Of course, little wins matter. But little wins, anytime and I don't know exactly under what context I said that yesterday, little wins don't matter. But for so much of what we do when we engage with the world and we have desires for things, little wins do move us forward. But it's often we need a bigger sort of picture in order because it's not about little wins, right? Life, just like a bee going to a flower or a squirrel planting a tree, that's just what they do. And this isn't a philosophy about destinations, right? Little wins are about destinations, about I'm moving closer to a destination. There is no win. There's no win because there's no loss. There's no success because there's no failure. And I know that for some people, especially if you're dealing with things like weight loss or trying to quit smoking or trying to quit alcohol or things like that, like those things, yes, engage little wins, engage things that help you through. But it is good to be able to step back and understand, like, what is the big picture here? What am I here for? What is going on? And I appreciate little wins, but that's all very destination based.
I
Julie,
think
what's up?
I think the thing about little wins is you can focus so heavily on them that you lose the depth of field, so to speak.
Right.
Little wins are useful to to gather up to a big win. Then they're great as little steps, but
But that's all
sometimes,
still that's
yeah,
still all measurement, and I agree with that.
yes,
It's like,
yeah,
and as you measure, like, it's like little wins don't matter, big wins don't matter. Like, it's your life. Your life is the win, and it is a win no matter where you are.
yeah. I'd say the same. And also the other thing is, of course, the wins. What do they mean to you? So we're looking beyond the little wins. Say if I'm going to give up smoking and I haven't had a cigarette today. Why am I saying that's a win? I'm saying it's a win because that is a feeling, a good feeling for me. See, so it's like it's almost as if I'm rewarding myself with this little win in order to motivate myself to wake up tomorrow and add to that win. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So
And then the
it's about what
moment
you're,
that you
yeah,
can't do that.
yeah. What happens? What
Right.
happens then when you wake up the next day, like me, probably, and I've gone all day without a cigarette or a vape, because I still vape,
No.
and it's in my mind one day that I won't vape. That's nice. I'll enjoy that when I get there. But so I'm going to go a day without, and I feel really good, and I see it as a win. The next day I wake up and I grab the vape absent-mindedly and I toot on it and I go, oh golly, I've just undone that win. And
Right.
that's why wins should really be a thing.
And
Because,
I'm all for little wins. Like, if that's what you're
yeah,
using, but we have to recognize that is a measurement, and there's nothing
yeah.
wrong with a measurement. We want measurements in our world. We want those things. But when I'm
But they
talking
work
about
both
it,
ways. They
yeah,
work both ways. That's the thing.
Right. If you
Because
have
when you
one, you have
recognise
created
a
the other.
win, yeah, yes, when you recognise a win, you also know what not a win is.
Right. And that's going to change from day to day, right? The first day
Yeah,
you don't like, you're like, I'm going to wait as long as I can. And if the first day you get to 3 in the afternoon before you have a vape or before you have a cigarette, you're like, wow, that's so good. And the next day you only get till 9 a.m. Well,
yeah,
now you don't have a win, do you?
correct.
Right?
Yes,
That's not a win now, because yesterday, now you created the measuring stick. Right? And
yes,
and again, I am all for like little wins, and I would never say, but there are, when I was an artist and stuff, and I would trick myself. I would trick myself into making more work by being like, okay, I'm not going to leave the desk until I finish this section. Even if I had to go to the bathroom, I would just like finish that work before I would. And tricking yourself to get to a certain destination, that's fine. But allowing yourself to, this is why everybody talks about lifestyle change.
yeah,
Because when you change your lifestyle, but that's, in my work, you don't change your lifestyle. Your lifestyle changes when you
mm,
love yourself more. As you
yeah,
love yourself more, as you recognize the things, the places in your life that you don't love yourself, and you start to give yourself grace in those areas and
mm,
really love yourself in those areas, then those judgments start to fall away. And it's not that, like what is most important, because you can say weight loss is most important, but
mm.
then are you going about it in a way that's healthy? Because, what if like,
Take
if
it to the
weight loss is
extreme.
important,
Yeah,
why don't you just like start using crystal meth? You'll drop weight if you do that, right? If that's the only thing that's important, right? If the
yeah,
only thing that's important is how much you weigh, then like cocaine is probably is an option. Like we can, like, and I'm not trying to say do those things. I'm just saying that like we have to look at where our what is our goal, what is our
yeah,
destination, and do we have a destination? Don't we want to incorporate some healthiness, and don't we want to incorporate some like
yeah.
some wholeness to that? We don't want to
Yeah.
just lose weight. We want to have a healthier life. We
The
don't want
thing,
to just quit smoking.
yeah, we want to be able to breathe.
We right, we want to be able to breathe, or
We want to be able to
we
breathe
want a life
easier.
in which we don't require.
That's right. Yeah. What I was going to say was I often hear this, that people want to be the best version of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would like to kind of say for me is I could go all out to be the best version of myself. But how about if I just sit with me for a moment or two and actually love the person that I am now?
Right. It's
Yeah.
like that is absolutely
Yeah.
the more I can love who I am right now, and that will allow me, because it's all the judgment that like I've said this before,
And it's
judgment
influence.
stagnates energy.
Yeah. It's you trying to influence yourself
Right,
or
because
living.
well, yeah, you're under the
Yeah.
influence of other ideas, marketing,
Yes.
advertising, like the messaging around things, all of this sort of stuff.
Yeah. The triggers that you attach to
Right.
as
Yeah.
well. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I've kind of come round. It's something I did hear, obviously, because I keep my ears open. It was something I heard, and it sat with me so beautifully. Was that I'm not going to strive to be the best version of me. I'm going to love the me that is here now and see what's out there. I'm just
Right.
going to move forward being me and giving kindness and love and compassion to me
Yeah.
in
Oh.
whichever form that is. Yeah. So there you go. No wins for me.
That's good.
Much love to you. Bye-bye.
Love you. Bye-bye. We're going to bring up Laura Stratter, I think is how you pronounce it. Hey, Laura, how are you?
Hi, it's good morning for me. What time is it for you?
It's morning for me. It's 6:30 in the morning.
Wow, that's super early for you. I mean, from my point of view. But I'm trying to become earlier riser.
Yeah.
It's 7:30 something for me, and it's my first time on your show. I saw that you were coming on with the tale, or how do you say tale
I
of the
pronounce
day?
it. It can be pronounced Tao, but I pronounce it Tao. Tao of the day.
Interesting. So I guess my first question is, what does Tao mean? Tao of the day, and like, what are the general sub topics that you discuss? Is it health and wellness, but more specifically to what, if you don't mind me asking? I just
Hmm.
want to be sure I'm in the ballpark of
Yeah.
what are you trying to, what your main message is, something like that,
Okay. Well,
if anything.
hmm so Tao refers to the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching is an ancient text written about 600 BC, presumably by a guy Lao Tzu, and it's been translated many times. And I've been using the Tao, and the Tao is a text that consists of 81 short chapters. Julie came up a little while ago, and I don't know if you heard, and she chose number 9, and then we read through what number 9 says. Number 9, I'll read it because it's very short. Having to prove yourself will allow challenges to best you. Focus your attention on money and lose sight of what is valuable. Keep in mind outside influence, and you will be its prisoner. Do what you
Mm.
do and move on. It isn't yours anyway. And Julie and I, before she picked that number, we were talking about bees and flowers and and this sort of like natural rhythm of being in the world. And so what the Tao Te Ching kind of focuses on is how we can live a more reasonable life. Right? And what that means is, how do we live a life in which we are not asking other things to be something for us? Not asking the weather to change, not asking our neighbors to change, not asking anybody to do something and to change their life for us. But then also allowing ourselves to live our life without being under the influence of other people, ideas, or things. And so there are 81 chapters, and what I do is I ask you, usually when we start, like, well, what's going on in your life right now? What's important to you right now? And then after we sort of create a baseline, just a couple moments of chatting, I ask you to pick a number. At that point, I read through that chapter of the Tao with you, and we look at how that can help you address the situation that you're focused on right now in your life, or reimagine it.
Very interesting. Thank you for letting me know. May I ask, what is important to you right now in your life, or what is a goal that you have, short term, mid term, long term?
No, you may not. um, so I invite you up, and the idea of this is to kind of, if like, what's going on in my life. I'm just sort of fixing my house and doing things. I don't have goals. I don't really think. I mean, there are things that are going to happen, and there are directions that I'm moving, but I don't have goals. I mean, as we were talking, do what you do and move on. Um,
Oh, okay.
and that is sort of my life kind of moves in a very fluid motion. And so, seeing as you and I haven't spoken before, if I start to answer a question like that, it will not, like, you may not be able to understand the language and how I'm using the language. And so I want to be very kind of, I want to hear what your language is first. I mean, because I'm obviously hearing that English is your second language at least. And so trying to understand, like, where you are and what's going on with you, and then being able to communicate with you is going to be more important than me just answering a question.
Sure. Um,
So what's
so
going
the
on with
question,
you these days? Like, what brings you to noon?
my short-term goal is to lower my A1C because I have diabetes, and I want to. That's like a midterm goal is to not midterm, but like in a few years,
Yeah,
I want to get rid of diabetes, and
yeah.
then the lifelong goal is health and wellness.
Hmm.
Excuse me, prioritizing self-care, health and wellness, physical, emotional, mental.
Beautiful. Are you currently like living in a way that's not aligned with wellness or your own health?
I am, but excuse me, I don't know what's wrong with my voice.
It's your throat chakra. Don't worry about it. It's just hard to speak. Go on.
Um, so I am aligned with the health and wellness. I made it a priority finally. Um, a little bit late because I already got certain diagnoses that I'm trying to let them go one by one.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of help from the coaches here on Noom, and it helps me implement the changes that I knew I wanted to implement before, but I wasn't necessarily. I was willing, but I wasn't necessarily able. So I'm learning what was it that was holding me back, and what did I do that held me back? Because that's the only thing I can change is myself and how I react to what's happening around me. But also learning that I'm in control in my schedule. Oh, duh.
Right?
Again, too late.
Mm,
I'm recovering for people pleasing and being a doormat.
yeah. Well, let
And
me let me let me ask you to pick a number between 1 and 81, and let's see what the Tao has to say about all of this.
one,
Number 1, words. Words are important, you know. So this is entitled "Expressing Tao," and one is this is where the Tao Te Ching begins, and and it's going to be really interesting to kind of talk about this, especially related to what you were just saying. So let's go into it a little bit. It says, "Words are particular; they cannot express Tao. To have a name is to be limited to manifestation. That which is nameless is the source of manifestation. Self-referential, those who name themselves. Do you want to experience the depth of the mystery? Stop identifying. Do you want to experience the shallowness of manifestation? Differentiate. Either way, no one can tell. The difference is in your experience." So all of the words, all of the, like even diabetes is a word. It does mean something. It does have some meaning in the manifestation, but you're having an experience in which your body is not working properly. It's not making insulin. Um, self-referential, that line, self-referential, those who name themselves, means that when you define something outside of you, you define yourself as well. Remember, like back when you were a people pleaser, you were
yeah,
defining yourself as a people pleaser. You were defining yourself as a doormat. You said that, right? You used the word doormat. And as you did that, like as you defined yourself that way, your body may have treated you that way as well.
it wasn't conscious. It's
Right?
just
Well, no, no,
it
no,
just
no, no. It's
it's
not
just
conscious, but it's there's energy behind it.
yes,
And the more you care and love for yourself, the more your
yes.
body is going to love you,
Yes.
The more your body is, the more you care for yourself, the more your body is going to care for you. Now, that doesn't mean you have to not care for anybody ever again, but you have to recognize that you're important too,
Yes, of course. Yes, thank you. Yes.
you know? And there are times where you can, like, the depth of that mystery is to stop identifying only with diabetes or whatever. It's like you are connected to everything, and everything that you think, everything that you do, all of the actions, whether it's conscious or subconscious, you might not know, but there is subtlety in everything that you do. And
Yes.
when you can feel into that subtlety, when you can be still and quiet and not fill your life with whatever it is you fill your life with, when you're like alone and feeling lonely, sometimes we eat, sometimes we smoke, sometimes we use drugs, sometimes we drink alcohol, sometimes we, whatever it is we do. But sometimes those things, those pacifiers that we use, they could get in the way of our own health, but we're doing it to protect ourselves from maybe feeling lonely,
Yes.
feeling alone.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do that, what we're doing is we're not allowing ourselves, well, let me feel lonely. What does lonely feel like?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference between aloneness and loneliness. And which am I feeling?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree.
Right? So that's what, like, and this is talking about, like, words are particular. So when we say, oh, I'm lonely, or oh, I'm this, or oh, I'm that, or oh, I'm whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like, we start to identify with those things. They're particular. They can't express what you actually are. You are magic, mystery from every cell in your body. You're mostly water. And you're walking around thinking and feeling and all of this stuff. Like that's there's mystery there. There's magic there. It's not just what you can say and how you can explain it.
I understand better now.
Yeah.
I'm
So
learning
this is what
your
this is.
language.
What's that?
I'm learning your language, yes.
Yeah. So this is Tao of the day. Tao of the day. You come up, we have a little conversation just about, like, hey, what's going on? Dot dot dot. And then I ask you to pick a number, and that number helps us just refocus that information that's going on in your life. Refocus the frame so that we can find a little bit more magic. We can find a little bit more freedom in being who we are without having to judge it.
Yes, thank you.
Like judgment stagnates energy.
It does.
You know,
It's a self-saboteur.
right? So it's beautiful to be able to chat with you. I'm really glad that you came up. I hope this was helpful, and I'm really grateful for your contribution.
Thank you very much. It's all new to me, so I'm
Um,
sorry I didn't understand from the beginning, but you explained it very well. And even now, what you read from that book, that first chapter, it was like a little over my head, but with the explanations, it helps. I think
yeah,
I understand the ball part. So thank you. Thank you.
absolutely.
Have a great day.
You as well. Thank you so much. And for anybody that now, I don't know if this is working. If the if the if the messages and the chats are working, because I sent everybody yesterday. I sent everybody the text, but it doesn't look like they received them. I don't know why. But um, I will send you the text from this chapter in a little bit later today, so that you can have it and you can meditate on that if you need. Once again, number one, words are particular, and it's great to be able to experience each of these verses from different perspectives. Here, words are particular. Now, Laura had lots of words, right? She said, I'm, a recovering, like she said, recovering a people pleaser. She referred to herself as a doormat. She talked about her diabetes. She talked about it from the standpoint of A1C, right? And so she's talking about it from a very specific place, right? Like this idea of like science and the idea of health and the idea of measurement. Once again, right? It's all about these measurements. It's all about all of these sorts of ways of looking at it. And when you can be aware of how it is you're experiencing your life, when you experience your life from a certain perspective or another, you start to recognize like the words that you use. I was talking to someone the other day about journaling, and when I journal, there were times where I wanted to change my language, and so I changed my language in my journal by physically scratching out words I didn't want to use, like the word should, and then replacing it with want or don't want. That way, I would not only like be a little vigilant with the language that I have been using, because I picked up that language from other people. And I picked up that language because, I felt like I was under the influence of my mom, and my mom said, oh, you should, like you need to do this. And then when I lived on my own, I was carrying her with me and saying, I should do this, I should do that. So words are particular. Energy is real. Energy is something that's fluid. It's not particular. It's connected to everything. But words are particular. So once you start to express something, you're expressing something particular. They cannot express Tao. You are Tao. You are filled with the magic of the universe. You're filled with, the inspiration that bees have to go to flowers and pollinate. They're not saying, I'm going to go pollinate and collect food. They're just saying, I got to get this for the colony. And that's what we do. We go out, we engage with people, and we do that for the whole of mankind, for everybody. To have a name is to be limited to manifestation. Once you give yourself a name, once you express yourself, now you have an identity. All of that identity then limits you to manifestation. You are now, I have diabetes. I am a people pleaser. I am sick. I am well. I am that, right? And like all of those things are particular, as we said earlier, right? Once you have a name, once you are connected to a word, you are now something particular. That which is the name, that which is nameless, is the source of manifestation. That means that is the magic. You can't name it. So if there is a way for you to see yourself without an identity, without a name, even alone, right? There's another verse that talks about the idea that, people don't like to be alone, but that's the place where no definitions exist. When you're alone, you don't have a name. I mean, you can carry that with you, but you can drop it as well. You can say, I don't want to associate while I'm alone with the particular thing. I don't have to name the couch. I can just sit on it. And I can sit on it and be grateful for it and sit and say, we are the same thing. And then just kind of be in that space of not being particular. You're not you, right? I'm not Martin sitting in a chair. This is just the experience I'm having. Let's sit here and be still. Self-referential, those who name themselves. So once you identify the couch, you identify yourself, and now there's separateness. Experience separateness. Now you're, now it's like, okay, now I am going to judge because the couch has a hole in it, and I want something new because I don't want this couch. Now we start judging things now, and we've named ourselves, and now everything else is separate rather than being like we are one. We are here together. Want to experience the depth of that mystery? Stop identifying. Stop identifying the couch in yourself as different. Want to experience the shallowness of manifestation? Differentiate. Like, oh, it's got a hole. I'm going to get a new couch. Like all of those things, neither of them really matter. You do both. And both of those experiences are going to bring you somewhere. Either way, no one can tell which you're doing. So just do what you're going to do and move on. The difference is in your experience. Your experiences are different, but the results are going to be the same. They're always going to be the same. Now, you may experience those results differently, but this is why we talk about the idea of willpower, or not willpower, but what's it called? Free will. When we talk about free will, and that being just like, look, you have the ability to resist or surrender to this moment. You can do that either by differentiating or by not identifying different things, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So you can surrender to it, or you can resist it, and then your ability to tell the story about it, your ability to just sort of like sit there and tell a story or not. If you don't tell a story, you're not using words, which means you're not identifying. You're not saying this is particular. This is just what happened, and I don't have to recall it because it just is, or it just was, and it turned into what is. Thank you so much for joining me for Tao of the Day. I appreciate you. I want to say to Craig King, if you wanted to reach out to me and chat a little bit about what the little wins mean. And of course, I understand that you are attached to little wins, and those things need to be celebrated, in different parts of your life. And I, there's no way that I'm going to be able to speak about this without touching and triggering some people. And if you get triggered by anything that I say, know that that's not, of course, my intention, but we can all find grievances in the world. I have a certain way of looking at things, and I don't expect others to follow that or to take on my perspective. I don't want to influence you. I want you to have your life as it is. Stephanie's going to join me. I'm so glad.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I am doing great. I'm having a good morning talking about the Dale. You know how
Yay.
I do.
I do. And I just ordered your book and I'm so excited.
Yeah, I got it out in the mail, so it should be there. I'm super excited for you to have it.
Yeah, you
Or
you
wait,
mailed that out pretty
did
quick.
it? Did you ordered yesterday, right? Or was it the day
Yeah,
before?
yesterday or 2 days ago. I can't remember, but
Yeah, it went out. It went out the same day.
yeah, I was like,
Yeah,
oh, I got an email
my
saying you
life,
sent it.
my life is easy. I just do things.
Nice.
So I'm excited for
Um,
you to have it.
hey, me too. It's funny because I had looked into some of the books and there were different ones and I'm like, I don't know which one. But then when I saw that you have one, and I like listening to you, so I'm like, oh, okay. Martin John's the book that I'm going to get. So yay.
Yeah, and I can send you a link to a website that actually has the text of hundreds of English translations.
Ooh,
Or it's
that's
like a little
exciting.
over 100. It might be like 120, 130 different translations. And I can point you to a couple. Well, when you get my book in the intro, it tells you which ones I looked at to create my translation. So
Okay,
yeah, so those are the
awesome.
ones that I and there's so many. There's so many.
Yeah.
And so you can compare, and everybody has a different kind of spin on it. Like Wayne Dyer did one, and he's all about a certain angle, and I didn't look at his, although I've read his. He has this certain angle of like law of attraction sort of stuff and things like that, and it all revolves around, like, every single one is really just kind of pushing his sort of concepts, and it's good, but it's very, you can tell that it's tilted. It's towards something.
Oh, because that's where I first heard of it. I started
Yeah, yeah,
listening
yeah.
and reading Wayne Dyer. And at first I was, me, I was a little bit like, oh no, can I listen to this? Because of still not knowing if I could
Oh,
listen to
right.
things outside. But then I said, "Oh, screw it. I like this. It's helpful for me." And um, anyways, but I know what you're saying, and I think that's what's so interesting. As I've been learning as well, there's different interpretations because we all look at things from our perspective. And so when I was, we were told the Bible, this is the only way to read it, but it's like your world opens up. No, that's certain interpretations of people's
Right.
interpretation of the Bible.
Absolutely. Like, this
So it would
isn't
be the
this isn't
same.
this isn't literally written, like, just like when I open up my shows, I'm like, yeah, okay, Lao Tzu presumably wrote this, but I don't care about Lao Tzu,
Yeah.
right? It's not. It's the text, and the text is so true. Like every time I look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, like that's just me wanting things to be different, but
Right.
then to be able to like allow myself in every sense. And this isn't, I've been working on this for 20 years, whatever. This is like it has changed all the time. I'm still going back to these short, like 81 chapters and still finding new stuff because every level that I find myself, it's like I'm challenged in a different way to continue to grow.
Yeah. And that's so cool because that's why I rewatch movies or reread books or go back and listen to podcasts because I was at a certain place at the first time and then later you get something else out of it. Whoa, I didn't see that the first time because as you're changing, you're understanding more. And it's so, yeah, it's
Yeah.
really interesting. I like that.
And when I approached writing this, I approached it in a way that I want it to be broad so that, like the first line of this one that we just read, words are particular. The idea that to use the word particular was really important because it's not saying words are stagnant. It's not saying words hold things, but they're particular. And depending on how you define the word, it's still particular. Even if you define it differently than someone else. In your life, it's particular in one way. In my life, it's particular in another. But it's, like,
Yes.
so the word choice in this and how it gets translated. And when I did this, I read many, many versions from people who know how to actually read the original text to people who have just written because they study it. And my point was like, well, what is it trying to say today? Right? What is this trying, like, how can I like contribute to this, like the lineage of this text to make it more accessible
Mm.
and broad, and I want it to be accessible to me as well as people that are just approaching it for the first time. And I have been reading it for 20 years. So, like I want it to be mysterious, but I want it to be like mysterious as like the word particular, words are particular. Like you have to think about that for a moment. Like you can't just hear it and be like, I get it. Because
Hmm.
when you think about words in particular, they go, oh, wait, words actually mean something. And when I say something, I'm trapping it within a word.
Yeah.
The energy, like I am a human being that has all of this stuff. But when I have a name, I'm particular. That's Martin. And there's something smaller about Martin than there is about me. Because I only know who I am. But you can identify me with the word Martin. So, right, like that one line has all of this connotation if we take it into context and sit with it. But if we just read it, words are particular, they cannot express Tao. Oh, I get it. Tao isn't particular. Move on, right? So you can approach it from that simple place. But as you sort of adopt to the language and start opening up your mind, like particular, like there was something very, it's like words, like I don't like words because they shorten things, they make things, they put things in boxes, but to choose the right words to inspire or whatever, and they were inspired, like I was inspired to do it. So.
That's what's so interesting. I've realized that so many arguments and um like what's the right word? Missteps among people, miscommunication is because so many times I look at things, I'm like, we're actually trying to say the same thing. I used to have this happen with a friend of mine, and I feel like she and I were always missing each other. And then we would realize after arguing about it, we were talking about the same thing. We were just using different words and our understandings of the words.
Right.
And it's
And
fascinating.
we want other people to hear our words because our words are particular to us.
Yeah.
And
Like
so, go on.
oh, sorry. I don't know if I'll keep this podcast. I probably should just because I did it. But I recorded a podcast yesterday just talking about hustle. And
Mhm.
I do not like the word hustle. Automatically, it makes me feel anxious and feel like
Yep.
I feel a burnout. But for some people, they like that word. For some, it means something different. And I have to acknowledge when I hear that why I'm triggered, but also it's not like a bad word. It's not something for other people they don't like. For them, they do like it. But what I find hard sometimes is when I don't like the word and people tell me I shouldn't not like the word. And I'm like, well, but to me, it feels very much like super go, go, go and blah. And I just can't deal with that because I'm different, you know? So
Well, this is the problem. Like, you're not different,
I'm
right?
me.
You're you. Right. And there is no, like one,
Well, I'm different than them.
right. And that's the thing. I'm a different, but the thing is you're not liking the word is giving them an experience of resistance
Yeah.
because they're telling you that you shouldn't like it. So they're having an experience. Now, are they going to go home and self-reflect as to why they thought it was okay to tell you how to live your life? Probably not. But
No.
that is exactly what they quote unquote should be doing, because that is the lesson, right? Every experience we have is ours. And so, oh wow, you don't like that word? Well, I think you should like that word because of ba 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 ba. And it's like, I personally don't care if you go home and do any self-reflection, but I know that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. And
You
I
know?
also have to detach from that because I'm like, well, everybody should self-reflect and blah, blah, blah.
No,
But you know, also like if you get too into that, then you're going to get stressed but you can't control what other people do. So it's
that's
just
right.
like, why are you worrying about it? That's what other
That's right.
people do. That
Yep.
is, that is the most freeing thing, Martin, because like so much of how I grew up was like, other people need to do this. And I
Hmm.
remember when I became an adult and people would be like, why do you care so much? And I didn't know until I started reflecting like, oh, because my dad was so much like that. And so it was,
Yeah.
you don't know until you see it differently. And then you realize, oh, I don't have to be like that.
Yeah. I don't have to run like we learn. We get a frame of reference
Yeah.
as a child that adults complain about other adults.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
say they don't do the right thing. Whatever.
it's so funny because my dad used to tell me, oh, the neighbors are doing this. And I was like, why are you bothering watching the neighbor?
That's right. Why are you spending all of your time focused on the neighbors? Like this is like how silly. Like just because we're right here at this baseline, I'd love for you to pick a number right now.
Yes. Okay. For some reason, 19 came to me and I think that's the date today.
Then it is, yeah, Juneteenth. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, Juneteenth.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is funny.
Is it?
It's
Yay.
it's always aligned. And again, you only have 3 minutes. If you have the time, please come back up if we're in the middle of talking about this, please. Don't aspire to be holy or smart. You will finally find happiness. Don't inquire about morality or justice. You will finally be perfect. Don't create things in order to profit. You will finally be secure. If all that fails to inspire you, stay as humble and simple as possible, and at least you won't be selfish.
Mm. That's a nice and short one.
Yeah.
Short and
So,
sweet.
what stands out to you, and what do you think the kind of overall topic is, and how does that relate to what we were speaking about?
Oh, that's a beautiful one. That actually goes into what the last time I was up, I can't remember what number I picked, but we were talking about fame or integrity, influence
Mm-hmm.
of excess. And I was saying sometimes, like, there's, if you're going to be like, I'm going to post on social media so I can get followers and likes and blah, blah, blah. And that is what you want. You aspire
Yeah.
to profit. And I remember I had a life coach and he goes, well, because I said, oh, I don't like posts on social media. It's scary. And he goes, question why you want to post. And when it started being like, I have things I just want to share. I have something that like came to me and I'm like, oh, I got to just do this. That's when I actually get the most responses because I took away from the whole, well, this one's going to go viral or whatever, right? Or I'm going to get more but when you just do it kind of out of an excitement, a joy, a love, wow, it changes. And I know John Maxwell talks about that. Like, how can you add value to people? And it seems so countercultural a lot of with people, because there is so much of like, how much money can you make? What can you do? Blah, blah, blah. The hustle again. And I was caught up in that for a long time. And I was constantly anxious and hated it. And now I realized, no, I just want to do what I can. I want to create things and just be simple. And I think that's also why I've always wanted to be more simple. I used to wish I could be a nun, even though I wasn't Catholic, because I just wanted to live like in peace. And I
Yeah.
didn't want to be out in the North American like culture of more and work so hard for this. And I'd get all stressed about it because I just want to sit in nature and just be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, right? So don't aspire to be holy or smart. And holy, in this context could be like famous or don't aspire to gain attention. Don't aspire to be better than others. Don't aspire to, don't aspire to be at the highest measurement of the measuring system. And you will finally find happiness.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like when you're engaged in social media, like, and you get all of these followers because you posted something about your garden because you're just happy to share whatever. I don't know what it is that you post, but let's say you post something and you get all of these interactions, all of these comments, all of these things, and that was just inspired.
Hmm.
Is inspired, not aspired, but so, and you're happy because you got all of that. Well, not long after that, you're going to find a dip in your energy because all of that dopamine that you got from all of those likes and all of that stuff is going to wear off.
Hmm.
And you're going to feel a little empty. I as an artist and as someone who is engaged in a lot of like big wins, right? Like, oh, I'm showing in Colombia, or I'm showing in, Sweden, or I have a gallery in California, and all of these things, right? Like, they always end flat. Every
Hmm.
win just leaves you one. And that's the thing. That's aspiring. For me, it was like aspiring to be holy or even smart because, like, oh, you see me as smart because I'm a good artist or whatever, right? Like, not necessarily smart, intelligent, but, oh, that's smart, right? Like, that's a keen thing. And when you stop aspiring to be that, like you said, like being a nun or whatever, like you will find that there's just happiness in being.
Yeah.
And when you're being and you post from a space of being, you get response. Now, we have to become aware of the response that we're getting and how it's affecting us.
Right.
And do we want to, and we often want to replicate that because it felt so good, but that's the same thing with, like I'm coming out of addiction. So that's the same thing as alcohol, drugs, caffeine, sugar, right? You have a little piece of sugar. Guess what your body does? Zing! And
Oh
then
yeah.
it lets you down, and then you're like, okay, I'm a little tired. I just need a donut, right? Like, and it's like, fuck, like that's not that's not a sustained right? Like we're sitting here talking about the earth going, oh, we got to make the world, we got to live a sustainable life. And it's like, okay, great. How are you doing that in your life? Are you doing that with social media and sugar? Because those aren't sustainable.
Right.
Those aren't sustainable highs. And the real sustainable high is not a high at all. And that isn't fun.
You're speaking my language because the sugar thing, that's how I basically lived for so long. And
Yeah.
I still have times when like, yeah, I just need sugar.
Yeah, right? Like, and that's it. It's like it's insidious.
Yeah.
It's insidious.
Oh, it's so interesting when I look back and go, "Oh, this is what people were talking about." You would hear sayings like just be happy with yourself. And it always sounded good, but I'm like, "Well, how do people what do you mean?"
That's hard work.
Yeah, and now I'm like cuz I'm starting to get it and feel it and see it. And, oh, this is what people mean. Or, um, instead of going from relationship to relationship, stay single for a while to find yourself, to be, to
Have a
love yourself
relationship with yourself. Stop
with
trying to pass it off
yourself.
onto someone else.
Yeah. And people would say that, and you're like, oh, well, that sounds good. But then you get this like, I need to be in a relationship. I need to find a man who loves me because I don't love myself. And then you're like,
Right.
oh, it's just all of these sayings that we had heard. I remember thinking, well, it sounds really smart, but how do you get there? And now I'm starting to understand and say, oh, it's really neat.
Yeah. And as this piece continues, as you're talking, like, so that's holy or smart, and that's, like, but don't inquire, don't inquire about morality or justice, and you will finally be perfect.
That's a hard one because I get really, I have a lot of empathy. I'm highly sensitive. And so when I see injustice, I get so mad. And I had a friend, she was like, it's not really helpful to be like that. I was like, what do you mean? We're supposed to be mad. But I started to understand it because when I was mad, I was then emotional and
Right?
I was then going and blah, 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 blah. And people who are kind of on the other side or don't understand what you're saying are like, why are you so angry? And then it
Yeah.
starts this back and forth. And now, and I still have moments, obviously,
Of course.
but now I can be more calm
Mm-hmm.
and I can maybe say,
Your
or we
anger,
can look at this side and people will listen more.
yeah, your anger only makes you fringe
Yeah.
and makes you the crazy one.
Like yesterday, there was this post by a guy I know on Facebook, and it was about women being leaders in the church. And that's a trigger for me because I was like, yeah, of course we should be. And then other people are commenting, like saying something different. But I was just like, huh, I was observing it. And then I just calmly wrote, like, well, blah, 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 blah. And I was not angry or anything. And it was really exciting.
Yeah.
And I also realized, if you start coming at these people, it's going to start a fight. I used to do that with my dad all the time. But then if you're just calmly, kindly saying something and maybe, and not getting mad at them, a lot of times they will be like, and this one woman, she goes, oh, that's interesting. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, we just avoided an argument.
Well, and even if you can't avoid the argument, the experience is still yours to grow with.
Yeah.
So there's that. I dated for 9 years a girl who grew up evangelical, and in the beginning of our relationship, she really railed against her folks, and her folks hated me.
Oh,
Well, they're evangelical, right? I wasn't,
yeah.
and so that was their job. They
Yes.
were trained to do that, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with them because I loved them, right? Because I was who I am. I wasn't trying to match their energy or anything like that. And when my girlfriend at the time would get mad at her parents, I would allow her to be mad at them because she had to go through what she had to go through. But I would also not side with the parents, but I would also kind of be like, look, your parents are this way and they're not like they they see you as problematic, so they're not going to help you. Like the idea that you think they should is out of line.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't that they're not helping you that's out of line. It's why do you think they want to help you if you're stepping away from your evangelical path? Why would they want to help you when that is how they live? You are less important than their religion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's obvious. And I was with her for 9 years, and they despised me the whole time. But they were cordial, but they couldn't wait for me to go.
Right.
I loved them, and I appreciated them, and like there was one time I had to take her dad out back and give him a talking to because he was using opiates.
Oh,
And he was addicted to opiates over time because it was all prescribed by his doctor at first, but
yeah.
then it got out of hand. And
Oh.
being someone who is in addiction, and he was avoiding it, and there was lots of things that happened, but I had to give him a talking to because I loved the family,
Mm-hmm.
but I never approached it from that perspective. Right, never approached it from the evangelical perspective. And so because of that, right, so he allowed his words, he allowed what he thought was morality and justice to shade his vision of me, even though I'm here being a support for the entire family in
Right.
different
Yeah.
ways, right? Like, you can't see that because I don't pray to the same God as you. This is why I say I don't let words get in the way of a good conversation. Because you're going to have different words than I am, and if I allow the words to get in the way, if I allow the manifestation to get in the way, then I can't be me. I can only respond, right? But the reality is I want to be me, and I'm a loving, and I am part of you, and we are here together doing this thing called life, right?
I saw yesterday it's a Heineken beer ad. Oh, it was so beautiful. It made me cry.
Oh.
They had two people of opposite viewpoints and it showed their videos of what they thought. And then, but they didn't tell these people. So they just put them in a room. They had to build stools and a kind of bar setting and then sit down and have a beer. And then they played these videos. And then they realized who they were sitting with, and they said, "Okay, you have a choice. You can either leave or sit down and stay and discuss." And everyone decided to stay, and it
Mm.
was just really beautiful. And I'm like, "Wow, yeah," because completely different. The one guy was like, "Oh, feminism is evil," and the other woman was like, "Smash the patriarchy." And then they're like, "Well, let's sit down and discuss." I'm like, "This
Yeah.
is beautiful."
And that's
So
where this, don't inquire about morality and justice and you will finally be perfect, because now you're open. You're
yeah,
open to them being who they are. You're not judging them before you get a chance to have a conversation with them. That's what
right.
that says, right? It says, don't inquire. Don't say, what is moral? What is just? Say, who are you? And can I love you?
Mm,
You
I
know,
love that.
don't
Yeah.
create things in order to profit, like solely to profit. And that's what happens when you create photos for social media. There's a profit there, right? Maybe it's not financial profit. Don't
Well, it's
create.
funny.
Go on.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say I signed up with an MLM last year, and
Oh,
it was. I know. Well, yeah.
that's fine.
I'm
There's
not
nothing
doing.
wrong with it. I.
Oh, I know. I have to because it does. Some people really love it, but it's not for me. But
So,
it's
so
I'm glad for the experience. But
yeah,
there was
those sorts of things, and I want you to finish what you're saying, but those sorts of things are because you desire something that you don't have.
yeah, and I thought this is my only hope of finding a career because I
Right.
can't seem to,
That's how they sell it. And as
yeah.
soon as
And
as
I
soon as people know what they want, they're easily manipulated.
or when you don't know what you want because I didn't know who I was or where I was what I could do and I just knew I couldn't do corporate world anymore and I couldn't
Right.
so and I wanted to work from home so I was like, oh, this is an opportunity.
Right.
But
And that's I
yeah.
wanted to work from home. I
Oh,
want the
yeah.
potential to make money. I want all of these things. And all of a sudden we start getting manipulated because it's like the minute you say like I want this thing,
Yeah.
someone is right
Someone
there
is ready.
to sell you the answer, right? There is no answer for you specifically until you find it. But other people want to sell it to you anyway.
Yes. And I would get at all the ads, and now I just scroll past ads. I'm like, I do not care.
That's right. That's right.
Which is cool because before I'd get like, oh no, and something else. What should I do?
Yeah.
But there was so much, what really bothered me, and I couldn't figure it out until much later. They said, oh, you be yourself, and, this is about you and your authenticity. But at the same time, they're telling you, this is what you need to do. This is what we did. Follow the formula. And I remember saying, this doesn't work for me. But you couldn't say anything. It's a little bit cultish
Yeah, no,
in
it's very cultish. Yeah,
in those
that's where
groups.
they learned how to do that stuff.
Yeah. And I, coming out of what I did, I was like,
Right.
I'm so sick of the cultish attitude. So I remember saying, well, I don't want to do it this way. And people said, well, this is how they made their money, and they're the millionaires, so we need to listen to them. And I'd be like, why? Do we? No. And that's where I realized I don't do well when I'm in a box, when I'm being told what to do. I used to think I'm a follower, I just follow. But I realized, oh,
You've done that
I
enough, dear.
I've done that enough. I'm a leader. And actually that's why I think a lot of my anxiety and whatever was always like I was trying to be perfect for what other people wanted me to be. And now it's like, no, I don't, I'm actually not supposed to be doing this. I'm supposed to be doing my own thing. It's
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah, and you're gonna find over time. Like I tell people, like one of my quotes is, "Don't let your definition of perfection rob you of yours."
Yeah,
Because we do that. We say this is the definition of perfection, and I don't meet this definition. Well, you're still perfect. Just because you defined it in some stupid way doesn't mean that you're not perfect.
right.
The definition is coming from somewhere else, someone else. It's not you. You are perfect. Don't define it any other way. Absolutely. Thank you for coming up. I'm going to finish this really quick, and then I'll get to Dr. Robert. If all that fails to inspire you, so if all of that fails to inspire you, like don't aspire to be holy or smart, don't inquire about morality or justice, don't create things in order to profit. If that doesn't inspire you, just stay as humble and simple as possible. And at least you won't be selfish. At least you won't be all about you. You're humble. You're simple. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Dr. Robert, how's it going, brother? Hope you're doing well.
Thanks for having me. Is
I'm glad you're here.
Yes, I'm 66 years old, so I'm gonna go with 66.
Okay, 66. We're going right into it. What's going on? How's the book coming?
The book is done, and it's up and it's not up. My wife read some of it, and she wanted to still change a word or two, so we brought it back down, and we actually put a new cover on it, made a new
Oh,
cover.
good. Good.
Yes, and so,
All right, so
but
this one, as
yes,
we go on.
I was just gonna say yes, but the ebook is out. The
Oh, the
paperback
ebook is
is
out.
not out
All right, well,
yet.
check
Yes.
out. Yeah, I'm sure all the links are in your profile. Is that right?
Yes,
Good.
there
So
is.
if you're interested in
Yeah,
checking
the
out
owner.
Dr. Robert's book, you can check it out in his profile. You'll be able to pick up the ebook today.
That's right. You
All right.
can.
So number 66, leading from behind. There are great
Mm.
benefits to humility. So as we're ending number 19, where we say, at least you won't be selfish if you keep your humility, we're talking now about there are great benefits to humility. All rivers flow to the sea because its position is lower. The master emulates this by always being a servant, inspiring from below, leading from behind. No one is oppressed. They find their own way. Like rivers, so too will people flow to the master, never feeling oppressed or as if they are in danger. The whole world supports her and keeps her in their hearts. without a reason or desire to compete. She is never met with competition. Think about that. I look at this as like, like you're always a servant. Your book serves.
Right. I'm really thinking about the last statement you just made, because the competition is within you.
Right. Yeah.
And
The
so
whole
it
world
is.
supports her and keeps her in their hearts without a reason or desire to compete. Right? You're not competing with anybody else. You're just doing you. And you
That's
wrote a
right.
book. That doesn't mean that your book has to be compared or compete with other writers. You don't have to hold that in your heart. You can just allow those things to be as you do what you do. And you are, just like we were talking to Stephanie about the idea of, you are perfect. Just don't allow the definition of perfect to get in the way of that.
Right. I always say perfection includes potential for change.
Yeah,
So,
like, it's like what is perfect today is not going to be the same thing that's perfect tomorrow, and that's why tomorrow is a different day.
right. So, hey, we're always learning. If you stop learning, then what? Life's going to stop
Right.
for you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for
And I
coming
mean,
up.
that's
That was
that.
nice.
Yes. Yes. I mean, and nice and short. I
Yeah,
like
it was
that,
that
but
whip right through it.
yes. Yes. I mean, well, I was going to say something else too. It slipped my, but in any case, yes, I mean, I really did enjoy that topic, and
Yeah,
and
I'll send it over to you in text, and then we'll connect again soon.
okay.
All right, I'm gonna swap you out for Spring Blossom. We're gonna talk to Spring Blossom. It's always wonderful to have you up. I love these when they just keep going. It's so nice. Hi, dear. How are you? Are you there with me?
Who is it?
It's, you're are you
Oh,
eating,
hello.
dear? This is
I'm not
Martin
here.
John over on Noom Vibe. We're doing. I don't know how you ended up here.
I come on every night to hear you.
Okay, well here you are. Are you snacking at the moment?
I am.
So
I
what
was
are we having?
checking.
What are we having?
I've got some dark chocolate and an apple, and I'm eating them together.
Oh yes, that is so
Mm.
nice. That is the way. That is a treat.
Yeah, it's organic dark chocolate
Oh, very nice. Very
from
nice.
our co-op, our food co-op, which
Oh,
I'll be working there in the morning at 8:30. So,
okay. So,
mm.
is it getting late for you? No.
Yeah, it's 10:30 at night.
Oh, you got to get up soon.
So, well,
Relatively.
you come on at 9 o'clock at night usually.
Oh, I'm a nice show to go to bed to. Come on.
Yeah, that's it.
Keep your mind open and everything like that. How was your day today?
Busy. I went to a healer to see about some homeopathic medicines.
Yeah.
And that meant driving quite a bit. And then I thought there was a meeting on in another town, and I drove there and found out that it wasn't. So
Oh man, it's lots of
that
driving.
was very disappointing for me. But then I rang my friend who lives in the same town, and she invited me over for a hot bath.
Oh wow, wow, that's nice.
I got to play with her little 3-year-old daughter, and that was delightful because her daughter's very bright.
Oh.
Yeah.
And like what's interesting about children is that you never know what they're going to hold on to. Like they may like this little girl may not remember this interaction at all, but there might have been something that you said or that you did that may help build a frame of reference for her about the world and what people are like.
Yeah.
You
You know,
never know.
I read a couple of books, and in one of the books, they've just been to Tasmania, which is that little tiny
Yeah.
island down the bottom there of Australia. And so I read her this book, and they'd been traveling around for 2 weeks, and they'd read it every night, and she knew word for word what I was about to say in on every line.
Oh, wow.
It blew me out. It was
Children,
amazing.
yeah, it's amazing. They're amazing. I've never had a child. I've been around my nieces and nephews. Um, when my nephew was born, I was bedridden with
Yep.
MS and
Mhm.
staying at my sister's house. And when he would eat, he would get really antsy and really, like, he was very, very young. Um, and and he would get just sort of irritated. It was like 3 months or whatever, because he was born and then I got whatever. Either way, it was about 3 months. And when he was eating, he was very irritated and stuff. And so what I started doing was humming. I would
Uh-huh.
start to hum, and he would kind of focus on the humming, and then he would eat, and he would be calm.
Yeah.
Years and years and years later, I'm over at their house, and I'm watching him eat, and he's humming while he's eating.
Oh, beautiful.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm glad that he's doing that because, like, you can see, like, that's like an experiment. But he, like I want, like, it's like he's
It's a connection.
self-soothing with it, and I
Yeah.
helped him kind of find that
Yeah.
self-soothing. And I do want him to eat without humming, like, just like I want him to not need that. But it is beautiful to see how, like, at 3 months, when I was staying with them for a month, how
Mm.
influential that little act, and I probably only did it 4 or 5 times,
Yeah.
but like
But
he's
you
eating
gave
and
him
he's
a
like
skill.
yeah, and he's eating and he's humming while he's eating, and it's just it's amazing to me to be well. And did I do that or whatever? I'm like, maybe not, but I do recall.
Yeah.
There are a number of things in my life that because when I was humming, I was like, I wonder if this is ever going to affect him. I put that in my mind, and
Right.
then years later, I hear him humming when he's eating, and I'm like, oh my God, I hummed to him when he was eating.
Yeah.
Crazy
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
And it does make you wonder, doesn't it, about how much we are actually implanting in another human being when we are unaware. I mean, you were aware of it, so
Right.
you know
But
it was a good
imagine, like,
thing.
you
But
get angry.
mm,
A friend of mine doesn't like perfumes and hairspray because when he was a child, his mom would get all gussied up to go find his dad in one of the bars in the neighborhood. And when they would come home, his parents would fight. And so
yeah,
violence became associated with perfume and hairspray.
yeah, yeah. That and actually, it can be a tool that we can work on some of the earlier memories when we've got that
Yeah.
connection.
Once we recognize that, we can address it
Yeah,
rather than just saying, I know my trauma. We know you have to do something about it. You have to start to
that's
change that frame of reference. It's
yeah.
not just chalk it up as I know. I know so many people that know their trauma and yet don't do anything about it and still walk right into it every day. And it's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's not knowing your trauma. That's
No.
that's being a victim to it.
And it's also empowering it.
Right. Yeah. You're saying, I know it and it's okay. No, it's not okay. It's actually not okay.
And and it can go, as you say, it can go on for the whole life if you
Yeah.
don't recognize and decide that that's not a good thing and I want to change it.
Right. And recognize that, you know what? Perfume and hairspray do not equal violence. What
That's
a
it.
silly assumption to make.
Yeah.
And recognize that a 7-year-old probably shouldn't be dictating how I see the world as an adult.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I recognize you're snacking and you're winding. Did you want to pick a number before bed?
Maybe 42.
42. holding both male and female.
Uh-huh.
Tao gives birth to universes. Universes give birth to planets. Planets give birth to beings. Beings give birth to everything else. Tao is the great mother. All else holds both male and female. By all things embracing both, harmony is achieved. To feel alone is avoided by men. Yet, that is where no identity resides. The master holds no identity. She embraces her aloneness, realizing when she is at one with herself, she is at one with all things. I referenced this verse earlier in this show.
Oh.
I referenced that to feel alone is avoided by men. Yet that is where no identity resides.
Mm. Say it again.
The whole thing.
No, that bit about men.
To feel alone is avoided by men. Yet that is where no identity resides.
To feel alone is identified by men.
Avoided by men.
Oh, avoided by men. So feel alone is avoided by men. And yet
Yet,
that is...
right, that is where no identity resides.
Ah, right.
So when you're alone at home, you can hold on to your identity as a mother. You can hold on to your identity as a friend. You can hold on to your identity as your age. But when you're alone in your house, there is no age. There is no mother. There's no identity
Yeah,
when you're alone.
yeah.
And in having no identity, you
You have space.
have space to just be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet, to feel alone is avoided by men. Because when I feel alone, I'm not grounded to anything. I don't have an identity. I don't have, like I'm lonely. And I'm lonely because I'm not, but as soon as I'm not alone, I am something else. I am something, and something has value.
Mm.
You have much more value than that, but nobody's identified it, right? Nobody's giving it to you. And so you have to find it within yourself.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And then it starts talking about the master holds no identity. There's no identity. And so, like, even when the master isn't alone, even when she's not alone, there's no identity there.
And this is the shame of having everything explained in a lot of ways.
Right.
We miss out on having that element of nothing but being everything.
Right. We want
And
everything. Like, I keep my phone. I don't allow my phone to access Chrome on Mondays so I can see how often I go to Google.
right.
To try and define something, to try and understand something. I'm like, you don't need to know. Just sit in the mystery of this. I mean, one day a week, and I can find like, I tried to use Google 3 times today. And it's like, that means at 3 points, I didn't know something and I wanted to know it.
Right.
Like, it's okay to not know, son. Jesus.
Yeah. And so many times, I mean, you go back in history and we didn't have these instruments that give us instant answers.
Right.
And we did sit without knowing.
Right.
And, 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 we became more engaging with each other. And it was, well, a lot of it was about doing too. So, yeah.
But it was also doing together. It was really relation, like, so like way
Relationship.
back you had relationship, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that relationship, because we wanted to avoid things, we wanted to avoid miscommunication because we wanted to avoid upsetting people, because we wanted to avoid, like, because we wanted to gain and we wanted to avoid and we wanted anything at all.
Yeah.
Once you start wanting, like I was talking with Stephanie earlier about, like, once you start wanting, you become easily manipulated.
Indeed. And
You know,
that's what the world's running on, unfortunately.
that's right. That's right. It's running on this desire.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking to, I think Laura earlier, and it was like goals. What are your goals? And I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
the last thing I want in my life is like goal. That doesn't mean I don't have ideas, but like once we start defining them, once we start kind of putting them down, now I have wants, and now I can be sold, snake
Mm.
oil.
Yeah. Yeah. And judge
Right.
yourself and failure. And,
That's right.
it, it just goes on and on. The responses that we have in our mind and in our body to what we gain or don't gain, and what we have to do to gain. And yeah, it becomes the story of our lives rather than the experience of our lives.
Right. And that's
It's
the thing. Like, our life is just an experience.
it's
And
so
like,
wonderful just to be,
that's right.
and to notice that it's a gift to
Yeah.
be a here and conscious, and to experience ourselves as being one with. And I'm living in the now most of the time,
Yeah.
and I think that means Tao's like that, isn't it? It's the
Yeah.
Tao that is the now.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, I just keep thinking back to you being invited to take a hot bath. Like, I'm like, wow. Like, what a beautiful,
Yeah,
like, invitation.
I know. And these things happen to me so often. I feel like, oh crap, I've gone to a town and there's no meeting. And then I ring my friend and she goes, come over. I send her a text.
Oh, you dropped out. Come back up. Let's wrap this up. And I want to hear about the, if you can come back up. Okay. Well, if you can't, no big deal. Thank you so much for joining. Yes, having an invitation to take a bath, like after been driving all day, like that's so beautiful. Like, you're just open to receive.
Yeah, I know. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. Life is, like I've been saying a lot recently, like, life is easy. And
Yeah.
it is. And, a lot of people's like, well, that's your experience of it. I'm just like, right, it is. I'm not trying to say it's easy for you. You can make it what you want. And I want to say, when I started trying to make my life easy, it was not easy for a long time.
Mm, yeah.
But I mean, it started with me being an addict, and then
Sure.
I was like, I want to change this. And I've
Yeah.
never, and that had me buying a lot of snake oil for a long time. And
Yeah.
then
Me too.
eventually I figured out who I am, and recognizing that, like, it's a constant thing. There's no destination. I'm not, like, and the less I can measure, the less I can want, and the more I can receive, the better life just becomes.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. I was an addict myself for a long time.
Oh,
Mm.
it's
And then I got hepatitis B and nearly died, and had the opportunity to get sober.
oh,
So
that's beautiful. Well, I'm
yeah,
glad. Well,
yeah,
congratulations. Like, it's a and that's the thing. Like, your addiction is ultimately when you receive it, and when you can surrender to it, it is an opportunity to not be imprisoned by it.
yeah. I mean, I went to meetings of the 12-step
Hmm.
fellowships for years, and it wasn't enough, because there's so much more to learn when
Yeah.
you know. Um, I did the steps, I did
Yeah.
sponsorship, did
And
all
that
of the
stuff is
stuff.
great. It's a
It's
great
wonderful,
springboard. It's wonderful,
absolutely
and it's
wonderful.
helped
Yeah,
millions of people.
yeah,
And I used the 12 steps in my early recovery, but just like you said, it wasn't enough
yeah.
because I wasn't going to live my life recovering from something.
And
And
yeah, exactly. And I've seen people sitting in the meetings for years, and they're still engaged in the material world in a way that I cannot accept for myself.
right, and we can love them for being there and doing that work.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely,
They're carrying the message.
they
That's
are.
a good thing. And
Yeah,
I'll carry the message whenever I have an opportunity. Someone is reaching out. I've got that from the
yeah,
experience, and I will carry the message. I'll go to a meeting with them. It's a beautiful thing to introduce someone to sobriety.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Absolutely. Well, I didn't know that. I'm really glad that you shared that with me.
yeah.
And it is, like I did a podcast a number of years ago called "Recover Yourself," which is all about the idea of recovering to something, not from it. It's like, yes, we need
Mm,
recover from. That is what we need to do. But eventually, in this concept is for long-term sobriety, it needs to be that you're recovering who you are, because you're
indeed.
drinking because you're not who you are.
That's
You're
right.
using because you're not who you are. You're under the influence of people, ideas, systems, and and living under the influence of those things causes us to want to pacify with drugs, alcohol, sugar,
Indeed.
caffeine, work, exercise, whatever it is that we're going to do. Recovering from that is important, especially if they are chemically based and
Mm,
so, but beyond that, it is a journey of recovering oneself.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Every little bit of it.
yeah, and just like it says here, we all hold both male and female. We all hold the ability to, do, and we all hold the ability to yield.
Yeah.
Right. So, and the thing is when you have an identity of one or the other, you're going to find a limit.
Mm-hmm.
But when you don't identify, like here at the end, the master holds no identity. She embraces her aloneness, realizing that when she is at one with herself, she is at one with all things.
Yeah.
And that's how you find yourself. Because you are
Yeah.
connected to every bee, every tree, every house, every person.
Yeah.
You're never alone.
That's right.
We're all being held.
And no one's judging you.
That's right.
Mhm. Yeah.
And if it looks like they are, what they're doing is judging themselves.
Uh-huh.
And so we can love them, allow them to be who they are,
Yeah.
give them space, and
Yeah.
return to our aloneness.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah.
I love you, dear. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Pleasure. Goodbye, darling. Take care.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up now. It's been almost 2 hours. It's a long episode for me. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Martin John. This is Tao of the Day, where we talk about the Tao Te Ching. If you are interested in receiving my text from the Tao Te Ching, you can go to my profile and find my website and pick it up from there. If you're interested in working with me, I do Tao readings through Satnam Yoga. I'll be putting up a link shortly to that, and that's all through Zoom. But I do my Tao readings through that yoga studio here in Chicago. Until next time. keep recovering yourself.